Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to bring you my September wrap up, and boy did I read a lot in September. I actually read 8 books in September. I don't think I've ever read 8 books in a month before. Part of it was that I did go on a vacation in September and I did get a lot of reading done during that vacation. I'm very happy with the amount of reading that I got done. Overall, I had a really good reading month, not just in the number of books that I read, but in my ratings. So I had 1 3-star read, 1 3.5-star read, 3 4-star reads, 1 4.5-star read, and 2 5-star reads. September was the month of arcs. At some point, I went on a NetGalley and Edelweiss requesting spree, and I ended up getting approved for a lot more books than I had anticipated, and for some reason like 5 of them came out in September. So I really buckled down at the end of August and in September to read all of these arcs that I was approved for. So the first arc that I finished in September was They Both Die at the End by Silvera, and I was approved for a e-arc of this through Edelweiss. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. They Both Die at the End is a contemporary story with a little bit of a sci-fi twist, because in this world there's a company that somehow knows when everyone's going to die, and they call that person and tell them, hey, you're gonna die. That way you have 24 hours-ish, depending on what time you die, to kind of do all the things that you want to do on your last day on Earth, whether that's say goodbye to your loved ones, have some new adventures, or even make new friends. So there is an app called the Last Friend app where you can get online and meet other people who are also going to die on the same day that you are. In the story, there are 2 boys who are both queer. They find each other through this Last Friends app, and they get to know each other over the span of the day. I really enjoyed this book. It definitely made me cry multiple times. I was kind of surprised how early in the book I started with my tears, because I had barely just gotten to know these characters, but it's just a really sad topic. I was just thinking about like what it would be like to only be 18 to know that you're gonna die that day and not know how it's gonna happen. Both of these characters are in some different circumstances. One of them, his father has been in a coma and he has like no other parent, and the other kid is in foster care and both of his parents have already passed away. They're both like in difficult situations to begin with, and then they're gonna die on top of that. Some people might find the romance a little bit insta-lovey, but hey, if you only have 24 hours or less to live, what have you got to lose? The next book that I finished in September was also an e-arc that I was approved for through Edelweiss, and that is Before She Ignites by Jodi Meadows. I'm already a fan of Jodi Meadows. I've read her new Soul trilogy and enjoyed it for the most part. The ending kind of went downhill, which you'll see later in my wrap up. So I was really excited to be approved for this off of Edelweiss, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. For me, Jodi Meadows' strength lies in her world building, and Before She Ignites did not disappoint in the world building aspect. It's a very intricate world. There's lots of religion and politics. The main character, she has anxiety and panic attacks, which was really interesting to see in a fantasy setting. On the other hand, the plot was a little bit slower. This book I found to be more character focused and not really like an action-packed plot like I was kind of expecting. This book has great world building, has really great characters and character growth. There's dragons, there's magic, there's just so much that I liked about this book, but I would warn people not to expect action-packed fantasy. I know we only touched the tip of the iceberg in this book, and I'm really excited to see where the other books take us. The next book that I finished in the month of September was also an arc. As you can see, I had quite a few this month to read, and that was Release by Ness, which I received off of Edelweiss, and I also gave 4 out of 5 stars. First of all, I love Ness. I've loved everything that I've read of his. In this one, while I didn't love it as much as some of his other work, I still really enjoyed it. This book is also queer lit. It takes place just over one day. It's about a 16-year-old boy who is growing up in a very religious household, and he has been in the closet to his family for a really long time, or I guess for his whole life. Some of his closest friends know that he's gay, and he's had a few relationships. This book kind of goes through some of those relationships, and it's all about the main character learning how to accept himself and to be open with his family. But there is also a parallel storyline, which I wasn't aware was part of the story until I started reading it. Kind of a paranormal storyline, and it's about a ghost of a girl who lives in the same town that this boy lives in, and it's also about this mythical queen. I don't know, there's some weird stuff going on with that storyline, and that was the main reason why this only got 4 out of 5 stars, because I really loved the main character and like the contemporary storyline, but this parallel storyline, until the very end, you don't really see how it connects to the main character's story. And even after seeing how it all connects, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, it was interesting, but it was kind of weird, but I still really enjoyed it. I don't know if that really makes sense. I still thought it was a 4-star read. The next book that I finished in the month of September was not an arc. It's a book that I've been looking forward to for a really long time, and I'm really glad I finally got to it. That is Like a River Glorious by Ray Carson, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars, not even 4.5, but 5. I loved this book just as much as I loved the first one. Like a River Glorious is the sequel to Walk on Earth a Stranger and the middle book in the Gold Seer trilogy. This book takes place during the gold rush. While the first book was more about the main character's journey to California, the second book is set in California. It's definitely more about the gold rush. I love the setting, I love the writing, I love all of the characters. There's definitely the found family trope in this book or series. The romance is a slow burn and it is so good. Every time they kiss, I'm just like, oh my gosh, give me more kissing. I ship this ship so hard, and I really love the romance, and I'm definitely excited to see where that goes in the next book, which is not out yet but should be out really soon. Alright, we are halfway through this wrap up. Whew! The next book on my list was an ARC, but this time it was a physical ARC that I got from Y'all West when I went earlier this year. It was actually one of the books I was most anticipating out of all the books that I got from Y'all West, and that is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, which I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars, which I rounded down to 4 stars on Goodreads. Enchantment of Ravens is a YA fantasy that takes place in like a fae world where there are fairies. Basically, the fairies in these books, they're beautiful to look at, but they're wearing glamours, and deep inside they're not beautiful. They have no emotions. It's like one of the things that makes them fairies. They can't feel human emotion. So this whole story is about Isabel, who is an artist, and she often paints portraits of fairies. So one day she gets commissioned to paint the portrait of the Autumn Prince of the fairy world. She does that, and he takes that painting back to court, and they see a glint of emotion in his eyes in the portrait that she painted, and then basically all hell breaks loose because that's not supposed to be possible. The Autumn Prince has to come back, get Isabel, and his plan is to take her to the fairy court and have her explain what happened. And that's kind of where the story goes. It's a bit of a journey story with her going to the court, but also things that happen there. There is a romance. I personally really like the romance, but I'm kind of a sucker for forbidden love and that kind of trope. I know not everybody will like the romance, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked the writing, the world building, the way the magic in this world worked, I really appreciated. I'm just a sucker for really good world building, and I think this book had that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book more than the other arcs that I had read, so I gave it 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite a 5-star read, so I made it 4 on Goodreads. The next book that I finished in the month of September was The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. So this was a reread for me. It's the 3rd book in the Wheel of Time series, which is like my all-time favorite fantasy series. I know I've talked about it on the channel before, but I don't think it's enough love out there, because to me it's on the level of like Game of Thrones and Brandon Sanderson books, but I never hear people talk about Robert Jordan. I don't know if it's because it's an older series or what, but I think it's really good, and it's actually a completed series, so I feel like more people should be reading this. But it is 14 books, so I understand it's a big commitment. I listened to this on audio for a really long time. They're really long books, but I finally finished it in September. Yeah, it was just as good as the other many times that I've read it. I mean, I'm sure part of my feelings for this book are a little bit nostalgia, but I just think it's a really great book series. It has fantastic world building, religion, magic, like really good characters, lots of characters that I really enjoy. So I really loved it, and it was really great on audio. This is a great series for rereading because there's so many seeds that are planted earlier in the series that you don't know what they mean until you've read some of the later books. So, you know, when people talk about Patrick Rothfuss and how he does that, so does Robert Jordan. Anyways, I could ramble about that series forever, but I finished rereading the third book in the series in the month of September, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the second to last book that I finished in the month of September was Infinite by Jodi Meadows, which is the third and final book in the New Soul trilogy, and I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I mentioned earlier in this video that I really like this series, but it did kind of go downhill towards the end. So the first book in the series was my favorite, and the second book, I don't remember what I gave it, but probably like a 4-star rating-ish. And this one was a 3.5, so it kind of just went a little bit downhill. And I did rate it 4 stars on Goodreads because it was closer to a 4 than a 3. The first book is called Incarnate. So there's about 1,000 people that live in this world, and the same 1,000 people have died and been reborn over and over again. They all know each other really well because they've lived thousands of lifetimes together with the same people. And then all of a sudden, Anna, this new soul, is born. And that's how the story starts in the first book. The world building in this book was fantastic. The idea of living in a society where the same people have been reincarnated over and over was just really intriguing and new and fresh to me, and I really enjoyed reading a book series set in a world like that. As you go along, you figure out why these people are being reincarnated. There's also dragons in this world, which I love. I love any dragons in any books. Please give me more dragons. For me, the downfall of the series and this last book in particular were the characters. As much as I enjoyed the characters in the first book, and I really enjoyed the romance that developed in the first book, afterwards the characters kind of started getting on my nerves, especially in this last book. I really didn't enjoy any of the relationships in this final book, whether that was platonic or romantic. I didn't really like the characters anymore, but at the same time I was kept intrigued by the plot and the story and the world because I wanted to know what was going on and how everything was going to end because there were a lot of loose ends to tie up. I mean, I enjoyed it, but not liking the characters anymore really took away some of my enjoyment, which is why I gave it a 3.5 star rating. Now we're on to my last and final book that I finished in the month of September, and that is another arc. This is an e-arc that I was approved for through Edelweiss again. I don't know what's going on, but I've been having a lot better luck with Edelweiss than NetGalley lately, which is not the way it used to be for me. Anyways, that book was This Darkness Mine by Mindy McGinnis. I have been wanting to read Mindy McGinnis for a long time. I know multiple booktubers and bloggers who love Mindy McGinnis books. When I was approved for this one, I was really excited because it was my first Mindy McGinnis book. And sadly, I didn't enjoy it as much as I had hoped. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It was kind of mediocre, and really I just came away thinking wow, that was kind of weird. Which is funny because if you look through my Goodreads and see what my friends or the people that I follow have rated this, they've either rated it really high and said what the fuck, that was weird, or they've rated it really low and said what the fuck, that was weird. So I'm kind of in the middle, but still what the fuck, that was kind of weird. So I don't know if this is really the best Mindy McGinnis book to start with, because while I could tell that she's a very talented writer and she was trying to do something specific in this book, it still felt just really weird and I didn't know what to think of it. Okay, so I should probably give a synopsis of what this book is about. I'm sure most of you have already heard the synopsis. There's a main character. She's, type A, gets really good grades. She's in the band and practices her clarinet all the time. And one day, bad boy from school starts talking to her like they are friends, and she's kind of confused because she's never talked to him before. All these little things keep popping up, and she comes to the realization that she had a twin in utero who did not make it, and her body absorbed her twin. Now her twin's evil heart has taken over her body and is making her do all these things that she doesn't want to do. I will say that this is a good book to read in October. I would put it under the thriller and horror genres. There's a lot of blood and gore that's described in pretty gruesome details, just so you know, in case you're not up for that. I really like that part of it, but the storyline is just really crazy, and yeah, a lot of things happened that I was not expecting to happen, and it was just a really weird book. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. It was just weird. Okay, so those are all 8 books that I read in the month of September. I can't believe I read 8 books. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I post bookish videos once a week. That's all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye. Hello, bookworms. Ugh. There's been this early in the book I was dying, or how early you only have 24 hours or less to live. So I was really, how do I explain this book? actually a completed series, so I feel like, and I was just, bye.